Hey guys, Bolt Shooter here. So I thought I was done with these weekend videos, but lo and behold, we're still here for another weekend. Um, I'm not gonna. I did promise that I would finish this weekend with. Finish this month's weekends with something extra. So basically, what I'm gonna go over for this today, we'll be doing random throw, like we'll throw basically what I understand about the Fanverse initiative and all that, just to kind of finish off the fandom history, the actual fans, and kind of also give some summaries of the previous videos, kind of giving idea why I did them as a fandom history instead of just a history. Um, and then tomorrow we'll go over probably some of my inspirations that got into the channel, because now we're flipping into a more business standard that I'm trying to get myself more professional. More professional is what not business. I'm not making any money off this, so it's more professional looking. So when it comes to fandom history, just to run through it easily, basically how I set it up is just because I was getting tired of making theories, making a timeline, or trying to make an understanding of this very complicated timeline that we have yet to get all the details of. Because from what I understand, is it sounds like there's the DLC, and then um, they're really trying to push for another game, and it might actually finish off the small little tidbits between that DLC and that other game. But I'm done as a collective unit trying to understand this. I'll leave it to Pat if he's still willing to do it. I'll try to do it if he's done too. Anyways, I wanted to do it more on like a fan base is what made Five Nights at Freddy's the way it is today. So I wanted to kind of outline a lot of the stuff that we either thought. I did have some of the same feelings as a lot of people did for, say, the books and some of the games. I had some of the same reactions, and it really felt had a general idea of how the fan base did. And then I threw in a lot of the stuff like our hoaxes and our theories, and I also threw in some of our more thoughts afterward thoughts. So like Five Nights at Freddy's 1, simply like a lot of our, I think the first four I had Easter like hoaxes. Actually, I had hoaxes all the way till Sister Location because Jacksepticeye decided to make a hoax himself. So it was like Sparky was the very first hoax that was so realistic to the game. And then we had general thoughts that, thanks to Scott's storytelling of the early Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 could have been the end of it if it weren't for him wanting to continue it because of how popular it is. We had to do was figure out a killer, what was his motives, and who did the Bite of 87. That was it. Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we really had mostly hoaxes. We had Golden Toy Freddy. Um, we had a few jump scares that, like the BB jump scare, the Endo-01 jump scare. The biggest animatronic I remember is the one that's on the thumbnail of the fandom of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which is the purple guy animatronic. And there was also another one where you can see the outline of purple guy hiding in the static of like the bathroom hall. Then there was Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which is basically the biggest amount of theories and hype that was around Five Nights at Freddy's game. Else than, of course, Security Breach being a triple A game. But it is one of the games that really, else than its subpar gameplay and presentation, it solved most of the questions and could finish the story there too. I think, thanks to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the 87 point part was understood. We kind of understood what happened with the killer. and then it's just we finally finished the story. The only thing is there's a possibility at the end of Final Freddy's 3 that Springtrap was still out there. And then Final Freddy's 4, actually we forgot hoaxes. The only hoax I found that was really big was the Phantom Bonnie and the Chrome Freddy. For Final Freddy's 4, the hoaxes were starting to die off. We had things like Nightmare Springtrap and Nightmare JJ. The Nightmare JJ was the closest one to being actually a true hoax from the original Final Freddy's line. But Final Freddy's 4, as a fandom standpoint, was one of the more confusing stories. And it basically introduced an element that, if it was to be thrown into a storyteller's standpoint, it soiled the idea of 87. And it made it to where the story had an extra element that, sure, it gave us a reason why Fredbear's closed, but it didn't give us a reason why there'd be another bite. Now, if you did the dream/nightmare theory, it worked perfectly because things, in the mind of a child, things are a lot more scarier, and it can be told in different, it's differently seen when you're a kid. So the dream theory helps a lot to understand elements of the games. So if it weren't for dream theory, Final Freddy's 4 would absolutely be nothing but a fingered trap mess. Then Final Freddy's 4, we actually had Final Freddy's World in between there, and that really it burned the second it hit the ground. It was such a good idea that people were like, I can give it a try, but as soon as it was presented, one, it had so many glitches and it didn't look anything like the trailer, so Scott had to go and revamp it, and then he had to refund everyone, and then he also had to go and take it off Steam and put it on Game Jolt alone, and basically say sorry to for the community for even putting it out there. I mean, it is a very good game. You know, I like some RPGs once in a great while. Like, I love Epic Battle Fantasy, and that was one of my first RPGs, along with Sonic RPG, and it reminded me of that a little bit. But I really don't like grinding. I don't like those kind of games, so I just I did my best to get most of the stuff for Final Freddy's World. The thing that was very bad about it is it took the difficulty of the original Five Nights at Freddy's games, where you had to get that secret character to make it available to win certain play styles for a lot of the endings and a lot of the trophies. Then we had Update 2, which gave us some of the characters we didn't have before on top of. It gave us some extra mini games to play, and then it gave us the idea of another Five Nights at Freddy's. I think it's Screen Rant with their trailer trash. Just get ready for another Freddy Fazbear's adventure that should have died back at Five Nights at Freddy's 3 with the Markiplier, the Jesus of the franchise, said, I don't want to see another game. Sister Location, it gave us sci-fi, it gave us a limited free roam, and it gave us some cool looking visuals. But again, it tied itself to Five Nights at Freddy's. It should have been what it was originally seen as, in being a separate story. It should have been saw as a side story, and it didn't turn into that. It turned into the killer's flesh and blood continuing his story and giving it more reason and more. It made the story bigger than it originally was. And now you have to explain, you cannot finish the game here, now you have to explain another one. Which luckily we got Five Nights at Freddy's 6 / Pizzeria Simulator. And that, I forgot to mention that during Sister Location we did get that, well, like I said, Jacksepticeye made the only hoax I can remember which was that Chica was in the flashing rooms of Funtime Freddy in the breaker room, and it was just him editing in to make it scarier and in a cool effect. Um, but back to Pizzeria Simulator, I don't think we had a single hoax that was super realistic that everyone, and I mean everyone, that remembered. And I say Final Fantasy 6 is Scott's gift that would have been kept giving because it would make people want to come replay because of the tycoon, and it gave people an ending that was treated well because it unlike, so it's like I said, Final Fantasy 1, it was just a story that could be left there and interpret how you wanted. 2, you can't leave it that way because now you have an odd number. Well, you have a weird number to end it on top of the fact that you have all these new concepts you have to flesh out. So 3 fleshed that out and had the ending of all the souls being freed with the exception of the killer still being out there. But that could be the twist ending. And then you had 4, which basically you didn't even talk about the fact that Springtrap was out there, and you showed us another part of a prequel part where it threw a wrench into the story unless you threw it as Dream. Then you had Sister Location. Final Fantasy Freddy's world is just a parallel world to Final Fantasy Freddy's, is how it was explained. But Sister Location would have been fine if it was a side story, but no, you have to make it the seeds of the labor of the killer, and now you have to throw them into the bigger story. So now you have to figure out how to flesh them out. Then 6 was, here's them completely fleshed out. Here's where, well, not completely fleshed out, but it gives us to where, these are killer machines that are being brought to an end thanks to the future. And I think that would be a good ending. But then you have Special Delivery, which would have been a fine thing. But then you had to involve it with Help Wanted, which Help Wanted would have been a nice thing too. Help Wanted and Special Delivery would have been just good alternating versions. It would have just gave us a better version of what we had. But AR was a lack of gameplay. It just was nothing but a buy this skin, buy that skin. And it barely gave you some lore that you had to go play Help Wanted till the very end and play its DLC to completely understand what was happening in AR's little story. And that only explained that there was a corporation that was getting told by Fazbear Entertainment to start up this and that, and now there's this woman who's looking up torture methods and feeling like she's possessed, and how do you get away from possession. And Help Wanted is more of just, here's the shady business that is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, well, Entertainment, and it threw the biggest wrench that made the theory that MatPat had, which was Golden Freddy doesn't exist. The games were all a lie. And I made a theory about this before, that Golden Freddy is the reason why you can throw out the games, but you can't throw out our mini games, our death mini games, our Golden Freddy references, because that is, thanks to the books, it is a spirit that's going through the games trying to connect to someone to bring them in to solve the story, which I believe is supposed to be Golden Freddy letting, I believe it could have been, he was trying to get Michael to play these games, and he goes through the games to be like, hey Michael, I'm here, it's me, your brother, I need you to solve this thing that Dad did. That is how you could explain it. And like I said, you can't really throw the mini games under the bus because they don't get pushed out in the Help Wanted game. You have the main gameplay of 1, 2, 3 in some of the aspects of 4, 5, and 6. So while you can show most gameplay, you can't explain the crying child or the murders. Um, so I believe Purple Guy is still supposed to be the main actual story killer. Golden Freddy is a spirit trying to outreach to the puppet, and the Golden Freddy are spirits trying to outreach to others to tell them to come solve this mystery. And at the end of it all, it's just Purple Guy comes back and takes over the body of a tech person, and that person goes on to be a part of the special delivery, and it shows that she's getting not possessed but influenced by William. And then there's Security Breach, which is just they have a third party that helps it out to where the scenario can grow worse. And now it's back to the way it was in its roots, where there was kids going missing, and things are the shady business that is Fazbear Entertainment can make the freaking health department scared and shaking in their boots. And while it's a good story of some kid that's, he's an orphan that's on the streets, and he's looking for shelter, and he gets stuck in this killer's playground. That was one of the best things I saw it as. But then you had to look at it as a story point of there's a reason why they mention he has no record. There's a reason why there's GGY, and there's a reason for Patient 46, and there's a reason why Gregory doesn't really expand on his explaining to Freddy about what's happening. And there's also a reason why there's Glamrock Freddy and what he's exactly doing, and what is this second person that's speaking with Freddy's voice box that's not Freddy. It's someone's spirit that's mentioning he has friends down in the underground. And Security Breach is very confusing, but if in Ruin they fix those points, well, they explain those points and show it out, and you just resolve the story in books and in, bringing up, finally showing everyone Fredbear's and Friends in some fashion. That is the end of Five Nights at Freddy's, is how it should be. Now moving on to the actual fandom side, like I said, I ran through the games, and I think I did better than I did in my fandom of the sequel trilogy, the third trilogy. I'm in that last point. But when it comes to the fandom, it looks like there has been a good spike in the beginning, and then now that people are seeing how the timeline and the story is going, people still want to make their game how they want it. But because it's involved with the story, the interest of making games else than for a quick buck or the ability to get into that initiative is the driving point. Go make your own game and don't try to influence, a community that is barely there. It's like One Night at Flumpty's was just, I think it was a joke. They were joke characters that, because of the influence of Freddy's, it was through into the gameplay standards. But I believe it was, I don't know the controversy around the developers of these games, so I'm just going to explain, I believe, how it was told by how they made the games, why they didn't make a game in forever. 1 and 2 of Flumpty's was quick, but 3, they lost the will to do so. They were forcing themselves to make a game for One Week at Flumpty's, and they didn't want to continue it. So they're like, here's the scraps. I'm for my own mental prowess, I'm not going to continue with this. So eventually then there was not a paycheck linked to it. There was empowerment of it can actually be hooked up to the official source. That's why One Night Flumpty's 3 came out. I believe it's like the person who gave you inspiration comes to you. You have a lot more inspiration than you could have had when you were doing it by yourself. You're getting recognized at that point. Then there's Five Nights at Candy's. 1, 2, and 3 were very connected to the story, where 4 is taking forever. I believe it is still in development. It's not in development hell, it's just the person's trying to make a love child here, and they're trying to take their time. I don't know who Jason is. And then we have... There's Five Nights at Freddy's Plus, which is how I mentioned that the fan base had lost interest. He made a recreation of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that I saw. I think Daco played it, and it looked amazing, and I wanted to play it, but it was taken off because it was too close to the material. But Scott took notice of how his style was good, and he gave him the keys to making a reimagining as an official creator. And Five Nights at Freddy's Plus, we haven't heard anything new, but we know it's supposed to come out this year, or supposedly. But it looked so promising last year, and I want it to come out so bad. I want to replay the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 location and have it more modern looking. And the creepy vibes that even Bonnie gives out. I'm going to be scared off my socks seeing that staring back at you. Just a blank face and his eyes bulging. But, let's see. Then we have... I know there's... There is Pop Goes that started. Then he had an option to make the arcade. Then he made arcade the green version. I forgot what he made, but he made a second of the arcade, and it was just a sequel to the original arcade. And it was already, timelined out. But the Evergreen, Pop Goes Evergreen, is kind of the same thing as Five Nights at Candy's 4, is that it's a love child that is getting time taken to it. Same as Five Nights at Freddy's Plus. But I can't say much about... I know Juniors and... let's see. There was Juniors and Afton Bill. Those are two... They're 180 of each other. There's one that had a push that it would have been... Like, it didn't have any official connections, but it was striving to be one of the best, and it is one of the best to my eyes, of a fan game. The only thing is I got pissed because they had made a checkpoint for Mangle, and it didn't. It was glitched out and didn't work for me. So I had to replay the entire. I'm gonna have to play the entire thing that I didn't have time for. And then we have. And I know that one. I know that controversy of someone being involved with certain things that they weren't proud of. So they basically said, "Here you go. We completed it, but we're gonna make more. We're gonna make a sequel, but we're not gonna push it anymore." And then there's Afton Built, which is one of those game developers that only cared to be a part of the initiative, and they wanted to have their shining moment by be a part of the when you make the Fanverse initiative, it is seen as you are seen from a higher up developer who's made it, that you have potential in the gaming world, and being a part of something that gets you started and have a good, not a red carpet, but give you some rose petals onto a good path. is basically how I see it. And Afton Built is one of the most, I'm gonna say it. It's very greedy the way it was positioned. It has a good concept. It happens after Final Fantasy 3. You have the reason why Scrap Trap becomes the way it is, and it gives you reason to go around and kind of pull a Stitch Wraith, finding different animatronics, different places and objects to take the remnant from and imbue it and fix up Spring Trap to Scrap Trap. But the fact that they came out and tried to push down the community, and I believe they were trying to aim shots at Scott, was one of the things. Is if you want to make a fan game, make a fan game. But when you're only going in to be rewarded, it's basically don't look for handouts. That's what it is. Don't look for what you can get. Just look for the fact that you did it. That was the problem with Afton Built. Is it looked so good, but they just wanted to have that signing and that's not how you should be looking at it if you're wanting to be a part of a community that's been so great. There's a few other ones that I personally never cared for the games. They looked cool, but they didn't have a good concept. There was one about like being in hell and one of the spirits of the kids trying to help you, and you had to use a table, and it was like it started with a T, but they got canceled for some very bad stuff. But I think the biggest thing that I look out for are the anniversary games at this point. The anniversary games, or people who do anniversary content. Like, I loved Final Fantasy Revisited. I loved Final Fantasy Revisited 87. I loved Killer Knight. I loved Fred Spy. You know, they're different content. They either did a twist on the original content, or they did something so different that you don't feel burnt out by doing the same thing over and over again. I don't want to be sitting on a desk watching a camera almost every single one of these fan games. But I think we are going to start slowing down on anything Final Fantasy Freddy's until the Ruin DLC come out. Or until I will be doing revisitings. I still want to go finish up what I can, because I have some new. For the previous ones I revisited, I want to finish it up and say that I got them done in the revisiteds if I can. And then the other one is revisiting the games I have yet to revisit. But those are the cheapest games I can get a hold of right now, where everything else is like $30 to $70. But anyways, that's it for this video. It was a short one, but it was one of the ones that I wanted to give more emphasis on. It is one of... I love Final Fantasy Freddy's. That is not a lie. I have so much merchandise, and every time that there's a game, I want to buy it as soon as it comes out, it's gonna be, I save money for when it comes out. But I bought Security Breach the day it came out on PC. But you cannot deny how things have gone, and it's just terrible. It's a community that should flourish, but it is a community that gets cancerous real quick if they poke at the wrong things, or there's people that try to use it to step on others to push themselves up. That's the things that's wrong about the community right now. Not to mention, you don't have your main creator who had a good style. Like, it's a style that it grew on you fast, but you didn't have to worry about it being so alluded to. I'm sorry, alluded to it. I felt like Scott came a little bit more forward with the timelines and the lore, where now you have to look so deeply to understand it. But anyways, I'm going to go do my inspirations, and then I'm going to go also make one more video for April, and then I got a few other things to do. I'm trying to prepare myself for other things in life right now. So, anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.